Well, welcome, everybody. First, want to just name we wanted to go live. Sorry, but we were not able to for a multitude of technical issues, but we still wanted to have this conversation and get this information out to you all in the world. I'm super excited to be joined by three amazing organizers and folks I've had the opportunity to get to know so much more over the last year, over a year now. But we'll start. My name is Devin. I'm the campaign and membership director here at the African American Roundtable. I've been at the Roundtable for 5 years, and I'm super excited to talk about Liberate MKE, our campaign, but also I'm even more excited to be in conversation with these wonderful folks who are our campaign fellows about talking about the campaign. So first, I'll let them introduce themselves. They just want to say names, pronouns, anything else interesting about them, and then I'll pass it to each of them. So let's start with Yolanda.
Hi, everybody. My name's Yolanda. I use they, she pronouns. And this is my first year as a member of the roundtable, but my second year on the Liberate MKE campaign. I'm really excited.
Thank you. Let's go to you, Nicole.
Hi, guys. My name is Nicole, and this is my second year working with African American Roundtable and the LiberateMKE, and I'm super excited.
Perfect. And last but definitely not least, Baisha.
Hello, my name is Baisha Witten. I have been working with the African American Roundtable for 2 years. I participated in the leadership development cohort last year, and I'm running it back again, spinning the block on it this year. Just enjoying the time and the learning and the people. I'm also a member of the African American Roundtable, and I believe in the mission. So just here to do the work with my friends.
Yeah, thank you all so much. No, we're super excited to have them all back second year in the cohort. One of the things we try to do here at the Roundtable is we're always trying to train and develop new leaders and more leaders. Like one of the assessments we've made time and time again, and you'll hear us always talking about is if we had enough people to win the world we wanted, we would have won it. Right. And so that leads us to know and an understanding that part of the work, part of the job, our job is to be training up new folks and new leaders. And I'm super excited to be here with them today. Aisha, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk just a little bit about what Liberate MKE is?
I can. In the time that I've spent with Liberate MKE, we started out just very young and green in the movement, trying to learn, like as African Americans, how can we exercise power? How can we imagine the world that we want to live in? How can we come together and do the work for ourselves and have the hard conversations and solve the hard problems? So from my view, we kind of work around Black feminism, which feels important to me, that we're centering Black women, which also centers Black families. And I'm always trying to topple the patriarchy. So the idea of reallocating funds from violence and police, state violence, and saying, no, we don't want to be oppressed. No, we have a different vision for ourselves. And no, we don't want to contribute to our own suffering. We don't want to fund it, and we don't deserve to be the target of it. So I think Liberate MK is about getting free. So we've been working on that just every day.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for that, Baisha. Right? It is important. Like, right, oftentimes when you know, let's say a decade ago, right? The concept and and the issue of policing was often always seen through like the Black male point of view, right? We can think about like after Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. And what we know, what we have to understand that women, Black queer folks, Black trans folks experience the same form of violent policing, and too often it's pushed to the side. And actually, like Bell Hooks reminds us, right, we have to move things from the margin to the center. And so as we talk about policing, as we talk about the campaign and the work it takes to take money away from the police and reinvest in our community. We have to be moving the experiences, listening to the experiences of Black women, Black mothers, because that often is also the experience of the Black family as well. With that, thanks, Baisha, again. With that, Yolanda, like, why is it important that we're in this conversation around taking money away from the police and reallocating it back to community in this time?
To follow up Aisha's point on building power, I think it's also important to support the life that's already here. And bottom line, the police have too much money, and it's important through Divest Invest to show that we need to take power, resources, and even legitimacy away from the unjust system of policing. And I think that's the core of Liberate MKE, that yes, we're building power within our communities, but we're also showing people in government that control and create these budgets that they need to reflect our values and our needs in the present day. So I think Liberate MKE is important for reaching our abolitionist vision of a world without police, but also to build connections with the people who are already here and activate the power that's already here.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. Our task in this time is also to be taking away power, legitimacy from police, right? I think I learned from Charlene Carruthers, in this society, money means power. The amount of money folks have is power. And we can also think about that in the terms of our government, right? If we think about it at the federal level, we spend close to $1 trillion on the military. That means they have power. They have the power to carry out injustice across the world. More locally, right? We can also take that in and zoom in to go locally here in Milwaukee. And that was a perfect segue. And I'll share my graphics now. More locally, we can see that, again, police have the most power, right? Because they have the most money. Each year they get over $300 million. Each year they get over $300 million compared to any other department. It's nearly double the next best departments, right? Looking at public works in the fire department, but also you can see the slivers, the crumbs that the libraries and public health receive. I tell this story often and it sticks with me. I remember when I started organizing around LiberateMKE and when I started organizing around an Invest Divest frame, I would go to the libraries for community meetings. And I would get there early in the morning, right? And there were young people waiting before the library opened. And I would go to meetings, another day, a meeting in the evening. And the librarians would have to tell young people, hey, the library is closing, it's time to go. So that told me that there's an interest, that young people are looking for positive things to do, that young people are looking for to go to the libraries and hang out there. But we're not able to meet that demand because we've said it's actually more important to spend over $300 million on the vehicles on this department that will over police, arrest, harm, hurt, all the things that the police will do to young Black people, right? If we think about the pandemic in 2020, we're still living, COVID's still real, but if we go back to 2020, part of the reason we weren't able to move through the pandemic any better than we were is because we had an underfunded public health system, right? People will say this was a once in a generation or a once in 100-year virus, and that might be true. But our response, in lack thereof an adequate response to it, was because we weren't prepared. Because again, we decided we would rather spend our money, our time, our efforts in policing instead of funding public health. So I think it's really important for us to say, right, as Yolanda says, we have to be taking away power and legitimacy away from the police and challenging the fact that actually police are what's going to keep us safe. Because we can think time and time again and how that's not the case. One other thing, one other thing we like to ask, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to ask a couple questions to you all. Is this, hopefully folks can see it now, is each year, like I said, the police gets close to $330 million. $330 million to do whatever they want, right? And there's little accountability. We've seen that. And so one thing we like to ask is what could you or what would you spend $330 million a year on if you were the mayor? So I'll stop there and I'll pose that question to you, Nicole. Like, seeing that, what stood out about the budget and what do you think we should reallocate money towards?
Definitely more affordable housing in the greater Milwaukee area is a necessity. More youth mentorship programs where, not just going into facilities and playing activities, but having youth mentorship where there is a touch connection with a male or female that's needed, where these young people can start to be healed and start to be more engaged so that there won't be so much anger in our community. So building youth mentorship programs, affordable housing, and just more support for single mothers, single Black mothers in our community.
Thank you. What about you, Baisha? What stood out to you after looking at or seeing that budget?
So I see over $300 million go to the police, and it makes me think of pandemic levels where we had the child tax that lifted children out of poverty. And we saw those families be able to use their resources wisely. We have to trust poor people that we deserve money and we know how to manage our households and how to feed our children. But this money doesn't come to the children. It goes to the top tax brackets. It goes to the police. It goes away. So if I had $330 million, I would lift children out of poverty. I would give them hope and love, humanities, arts, music, dance, creative things to let them express Black joy instead of Black pain. And I would look at economic development. How can we have small business hubs? How can we support content creators? How can we get into technology and AI? How can we bridge the digital divide? There are ACP programs that were closing barriers to internet access, and that's going away. So that's money that should be used so our children can learn online, have experiences online, and stay connected with the rest of the world. So there are many more ways than to spend this money than to chase criminals and criminalize Black people.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to come to you in 1 second, but I just want to pick up something that Baisha laid down is that talking about like what the decisions we made during the pandemic to lift families, young people, kids out of poverty. If you think about like, extra EBT benefits, or if you think about the stimulus, or you think about the child tax credit, all of these are choices, right? One thing we talk a lot about are budgets being moral documents. It tells us what we care about. And this budget tells us we don't care about young people. We don't care about public health. Actually, all the things that we do care about, the only things we do care about is policing Black people. So with that, Yolanda, can you share like what stood out to you as you were listening and watching seeing the budget?
I think what stood out to me is the lack of money for like people's health, just not just public health and physical health care, but the health of our infrastructure and the health of our social spaces like libraries. I think the public works getting less than half of the police budget is ridiculous when if you go on any road in Milwaukee, there's tons of potholes, there's unfinished construction projects for years. We have a lead issue in so many homes in Milwaukee's that needs to be fixed. So there's a high level of need for these things, but yet our budget still looks the same over the years of police getting $330 million. So I think if I was able to shift that budget around, it would directly go to building our infrastructure, supporting the health needs of young people, not just our physical health, but our social health. That's what I would do.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yolanda, I'm gonna come right back to you. And you talked about like it's a choice spending 330 plus million dollars. Why do you think Milwaukee is so invested in policing and spending that level on policing?
Mm. I think there's a few things. I think Milwaukee has, as you said earlier, a long history of suppressing young Black people, especially Black working class people. And in order to control and maintain the areas of the city that are wealthy and white, they had to control and separate Black people, especially poor Black people, from those spaces. And they do that through policing and guarding the property, the high rises, the expensive stores, and keeping us out of those places. I think looking back at Milwaukee's history, where when the police force was established, that was also an era of increased control of property, increased order maintenance, increased moving of people outside of public spaces, criminalizing things like homelessness, those type of things. So I think even looking today with our police budget, we still see the same things of trying to keep poor people out of public spaces, and relying on police to solve our issues, whether they're social or economic or interpersonal even. So I think with that history, our leaders haven't really been challenged to change their practices. And they also lack the imagination to do better. I think COVID was an opportunity where we're forced to reckon with our past. And there were moments where we decided to put more money into social services and put more money into feeding kids and things like that. But people yet again get attached to their fears, usually wanting to control property, wanting to control space, and keeping younger people, Black people, poor people out. So I think we need to expand our imagination and force our leaders to expand their imagination to reinvest in those life-affirming spaces, those life-affirming services, but to also challenge the ways that we've excluded people from public spaces and really challenge the ways that we've built places like downtown or the East Side, and to really make that for everyone. And by doing that, we put more public money into the space and make it accessible. So I think there are so many factors into why Milwaukee keeps investing in policing. I think it's a fear of doing something different. And I think we need to work through that fear, and push ourselves to do better.
Yes. Again, all of that. I was like thinking about that is like the lack of the imagination, right? I think Angela Davis and y'all, I could be wrong, but I think in Angela Davis's book, Freedom's a Constant Struggle, she talks about how we kill people's imagination, by saying what's possible and not, you know. Um, Arundhati Roy in the pandemic wrote, "Pandemic is portal." The opportunity to take us to a new place. And Yolanda raised that point, and we've missed that portal to go move away from the old and into something new. Nicole, I'll go to you on this question. Have like talking to folks, like people in your community, maybe folks you go to church with, why do you think they're so invested in policing?
Oh, wow. If I can honestly answer that, well, when it comes to being taxpayers and where the money is allocated to go, and that we pay our taxes. But I believe that we ignore it. When I say we, I mean overall we, the church. Like, I mean, at least as far as speaking up, we've ignored it or not ignored it, not giving it any attention. I could say because we don't really know the power of our voice. We don't really know and understand the power of our ask. We have more power than we realize to get the things that we desire because we have that right. And so I feel like being even, especially in the church, you know, we are boisterous when it comes to the things of God, but we, in some areas, we negate or neglect our responsibility to help bring healing and being made whole in our community. And one of those ways to me is speaking up and speaking about divesting money from the police back into our communities, and which in return could help be a blessing to our churches.
Yes, yes to that. Anybody else want to add anything? Just like talking to folks, like why do we think folks are so invested in the concept of policing?
I talk with my best friend about this a lot. She is a lover of community, a lover of Black people. But on the other hand, she is also a lover of police. She thinks that that makes her feel safe, that they'll come in and rescue and save the day. And I was explaining to her, like, there are times when if we don't keep our affairs in order as a family and we call the police for help, one of our loved ones will be murdered. So we've called the police and brought them into our personal situations, and now we're all together at the funeral. And it's not like a gray area. It's not bringing us safety. It is bringing us more pain, and it's not allowing us to resolve our conflicts on our own, to connect with our people and love each other through conflict and talk it out and compromise. And a lot of this feels intentional. It feels like racism. It feels like white supremacy and racism continued generation over generation, where we're not allowed to be free to direct ourselves and have our own authority over ourselves and act as adults and not minors, and be the minority in a state where we are the economic driver of this state. Milwaukee brings all of the funding to the state of Wisconsin. We are justified. We are generating revenue. We are doing the work. We build our communities. We raise our children. We love ourselves. We love one another, but we're being forced to fight over scraps and to like mask our pain. So a lot of it to me does feel like historical racism. And if we can kind of address it and fix it for ourselves, we will have to fix it for ourselves.
No, that so much power there. And like I don't want like people think I'm over exaggerating, but we have to name it. And I think you are getting there. As long as police and policing exists, it will kill Black people. Hard stop. And so, and I also don't want to be naive to the fact that people, like, right, one thing I say all the time, every breath I've taken, every breath my mother's taken, every breath my mother's taken, like this concept, this modern concept of policing has existed, right? And so that's all people know. And police have gained a monopoly on the word safety. They think they have convinced people that they're the only ones to keep us safe, or that's their main job. But we know that's not the case, right? We know that's not the case. So one question we like to ask as well, to try to challenge, right? Part of the campaign is we have an understanding that we actually, part of the work we have to be doing is moving people on this issue, right? We have to be talking to folks to try to convince them to come to our side. And so one question we ask is just, folks listening and watching, just think of a time you've called the police. What happened? That's one question to think about. And another question we like to ask and get folks to think about is think about another time, where you might have seen somebody breaking a law. Or one example I like to give is Think of a time maybe you've seen two kids fighting and you didn't call the police. How did you intervene? Right? Part of the reason I think we're so comfortable and ready to spend $330 million every year on police and policing is because we think that like that pushes this safety thing off on other people. But actually, safety, we have an active role. We support each other. Stay safe, be safe by the ways we're in relationship and community with folks. Right? By the ways we're in relationship and community with folks. And so we have to name and be honest about it, that we've all had experiences. And what Miriam Kaba says is anytime you don't call the police, anytime you shorten the reach of the police by not calling them, by choosing to intervene yourself, by choosing instead of calling the police to have a conversation, you're bringing an abolitionist future an inch closer, right? Another book I'm reading says inch by inch, block by block. That's the work of this campaign, is to move us closer inch by inch, block by block. So we're just getting started, y'all. And thank you, Nicole and Yolanda and Baisha, for like being in a wonderful conversation. I want to talk to us a little bit about where we're going, the budget timeline, and what we have in store as we move towards a close. So bear with me, folks should be able to see it. So this is like sort of the city of Milwaukee's budget timeline. Obviously we're in May. This is like the city's process. I'm going to also talk about what our plan is as well. But this is just the step-by-step budget process, how the budget works. So what happens each year is each department submits requests to the city's budget office around how much money they think they need. Those requests are usually based on information provided by the mayor. Like, actually, we're going to be in a financial shortfall, so I just want y'all to submit a request based on what do you need to maintain your level. Or if we're doing well financially, it could be actually, you can send me a couple wishes as well in that request. The budget office then over the next couple months takes that, or the budget, we see in May 14th, this was the requests were just due. So, right, cities have submitted their requests. So now the budget office is taking all those requests, looking at the financial forecast to actually, and working with the mayor, what are his priorities to actually build a budget, right? To actually build a budget. So then the mayor, allegedly, he's listening to us at the end of August or the end of summer when he has a budget hearing. And allegedly, he's taking that input from what we're saying in that budget hearing to create his real budget, which he presents to the Common Council in late September. So the first part of the budget process is all in the mayor's office. It's all in the mayor's office. Then after that, in late September, it moves to the Common Council. So they get the mayor's budget and they get to deliberate on it. So they have their own public hearing in early October. And then throughout October, they have meetings with different department heads around why they want this budget. And then they can make amendments to the budget as well. And then at the beginning of November, they vote on the budget and they adopt the budget. After the vote on the budget, the mayor still can veto some of the Common Council's proposals. So if the Common Council makes a change to the mayor's budget that he doesn't like, he still can veto it. But it takes a 2/3 vote to override that veto. So still, if the Common Council makes a change to the budget, the mayor says, I'm going to veto it. And it's 10 members of the Common Council who want the change will be made. So that's sort of the city's timeline. What we're going to be getting up to is we're going to begin to talk to folks. Our job is to talk to folks, right? We're going to be talking to folks at Juneteenth. We're going to be canvassing actually tomorrow, this weekend, texting our friends next week as well, to really begin to build up people who are on our team, who agree that we need to be moving money away from police and policing into the programs that serve us better. Hopefully, we're gonna have some trainings. I think tentatively at the beginning of July, looking to have a community education event where we get to talk deeper in more detail, get to hear from you all as well. We're gonna provide trainings to get people prepared to participate in the budget process. I just laid out probably in later July and again in September. And then hopefully we turn out folks, both in August and October, to let the mayor, let Common Council, let the city know that actually our vision for Milwaukee is not their vision. And actually we're willing to show up, show out in service of winning this world we want. And then hopefully as we get into October, we got some of our agendas in the budget that we're seeing tangible ways that we can take money away from the police and reinvest into the programs that best serve us. With that, I don't know if any of you all have anything else you would like to add as we move towards a close. Well, I just want to thank everybody who, we wanted to go live again, but we couldn't. So we're going to get this up another way. So we want to thank everybody who stayed with us, who's supporting us, who's willing to be down with us. And I can't wait to see y'all all in person. So thank y'all all. Have a wonderful rest of whatever time of day it is you're going to be watching it. So bye, y'all.